In this series, I'm going to review the work of motion designer Kiyoon Nam. He's a senior over at Ringling College of Art and Design. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to check in on him and give him advice on various stages in the process, from storyboards to style frames to animatic to animation to final composite. And this is for all of you motion designers out there who want to understand how to present your work, want to understand the process of motion design a little bit better, and what it's like to get feedback from somebody out in the field. Me.
I'm Kiyoon Nam. I'm 23. I'm a senior at Ringling. I was born in Korea, but I grew up in the U.S. I've spent all 23 years of my life in this country. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really know what motion design was until coming to Ringling.
Great. And you're 4 years into the program now?
Yes.
So you're finishing off, and as part of your senior year, they're making you do a thesis project?
This semester, we're supposed to create something kind of meant to be personal to us. I kind of wanted to do something that I've kind of dealt with my whole life, as a minority growing up in the U.S. Just kind of like the duality of my identity as a Korean and as an American. I want to tell the story through a medium that's inspired by traditional Korean culture, the dances and the music and the colors and the dresses and costumes that are prevalent in Korean culture. My concept title is Roman à Clef. It's French, and it's a novel in which it depicts real people or events under fiction. My concept statement is an exploration of my identity struggle as a Korean growing up in the US, and I want to utilize an open stage-like setting to symbolize my efforts to act and adapt in order to fit in.
In this next section, we're going to review Kiyoon's mood boards. And what mood boards are is just a highly curated set of images that help convey some story elements, the overall aesthetic, and help fill in his idea before he gets too far along. For those of you guys who don't use mood boards are a great way to help onboard a client or convey your idea to another person before you get too far along from creating something custom, which takes a long time. Mood boards are a quick way to pull some stuff together and check your idea before you get into the next phases, which is style frame, storyboard, animation. So we'll be looking at this in the next segment.
Yeah, I pulled basically the movements, the motion, and the colors of these traditional Korean dances called talchum. It was a way for Korean villagers to get together. They would tell stories of the upper class and the kings who ruled at the time or whatever. Most of the time, they were actually parodies. And I thought that was kind of appropriate. I felt like people kind of looked at me as like a joke. So that was very fitting. And I find the images very beautiful. These circular swirls and like the colors, and just like you can kind of see the movement that the performers are going through.
I'm looking at the masks on the bottom of the frame. They're all super cool. Is there a difference between the styles of masks and what they represent?
Yeah. This one is, it kind of represents the everyday man. Most of the masks in this image are, seem to have a smile or are happy looking, but there are some that have frowns and very painful or sad looks on them. This one is, I think, royalty and nobility is more accurate. I'm not sure if it's this one because it's like hidden by the image in front, but there's one where it depicts the temptation of anger.
It's kind of like a devil type of character.
Yeah, I wouldn't say devil, not in like the Christian sense or the religious sense, but just the welling of giving into anger. In Korean culture, there's kind of this running joke of like the village idiot type of trope. Kind of represents the free-mindedness yet very unrefined, I guess, nature of that character trope. There's an emphasis on color and like these loose extra pieces of clothing on the dresses. There's these hats that have these long sashes attached to them, and the performers kind of spin their heads, and they create these beautiful circles as they perform around the stage.
Okay, so it looks like you're referencing a couple of things here. You're referencing talchum mostly for the masks, right? The dance, the story through mask dance, and then you're pulling in a few more other things from traditional Korean dance performance art.
Yes.
In this next segment, we're going to review Kiyoon's style frames, and what these are a couple of key frames from his story that help convey the overall aesthetic and key moments in the piece that he's going to animate. So in this next segment, he focused on Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, because he felt like those were the big key moments in his spot, and we could see the clear differences in aesthetic from beginning to end. So that's what you use style frames for. It's to help convey the overall aesthetic for very key moments in your piece. So let's get into this.
So I kind of wanted to have like 3 acts where the beginning is kind of this about the struggle, where the colors aren't as diverse and kind of even more threatening, and it's kind of monochromatic with just a hint of a highlight color. And I wanted to be about the struggle. And in the mask that is on the character is one of the more sad characters. In the second style frame, I wanted to highlight a moment in the second act that I wanted, kind of where the character is beginning to move with these external forces around him. Rather than the colors manipulating him, I wanted him to start manipulating the colors, and moving with them and being one. And then the more traditional colors of those Korean costumes start coming in, and the colors become more diverse. And then in the third act, I wanted it to be about acceptance, or kind of like maybe even a moment of transcendence, where the character has now become, the colors and these swirls, and what's left is like just a mask and the face of, I guess, the happy, normal citizen, or normal Korean, average Korean citizen. And, even the background is white. It goes from black to white, and these colors are swirling around him.
I like the way you approached it as far as the 3 acts, so you can kind of see the difference. You can see the evolution from the beginning to the end. As you were walking me through it and you were talking about the first frame, it made some sense to me. I think if I saw that as a standalone, the very first frame on the left side, I would feel a little bit confused because there's no context to bring me in. So the second frame, you said he's starting to wield this energy, right? This external component. Instead of it controlling him, he's starting to wield it. And I like it. I like that you could see it like almost coming off of his foot. I'd almost want to see a little bit coming off of his hand, because based off of the references that you showed me, you showed that, they have those long sleeves and it feels like it's an extension of the arms. One extra insert frame that might be nice is to establish that. Like, where is this coming from? How do I know that he's able to now control and yield this external force? And then I like how it actually ends, and I can start to see the evolution of the masks. I would almost like to see if those would be a little bit more present from the first frame to the third frame.
Okay.
Talk to me about these strings that are coming off of the appendages of our character.
I wanted to keep kind of like the idea of like this being like this character literally being one of those figures you kind of pose for drawing. Someone who isn't fully in control of their body. And I wanted to like show that this person has like a wireframe. It has these strings and it's like almost like pulley system that is meant to be that they're meant to be controlled.
I love your take on the marionette, right? Or the little puppet with strings on it, yet it's all controlled inside. And I like that it's the same colors as the external elements that are on the outside. So I was just wondering if there's any tie to those two things. So for instance, at the beginning, where these external elements are choking and suffocating the character, do those strings have something to do with it, right? Like, are the strings even restricting the character? Like, is he stiffening up? Like, the way that he's moving, it doesn't look like he's in control, right? He's almost bound by these strings. Are the strings the thing that are like coming out, they become red and then they choke him, right? Or, like, I'm just trying to figure out the story of the strings, because I think they're quite interesting and I like your execution of it here. I'm just trying to draw a stronger purpose for that design element, other than it being beautiful. Does it have more legs? Does it make the story more interesting, or does it make it more complex for no reason? Because I could see this as also being a technical challenge too. If you want the strings to act a certain way or move a certain way, that also might give you an additional technical challenge, which maybe you may consider moving forward. So 2 things just to think about, because I think they could work really hard for you, but they could also give you some challenges in the future. So just something to think about, because I think there is an opportunity to make something quite nice from those. Or even, like, if you think about it, the mask, right? I know the character always has the mask on here so far, but is that something, is the mask bound to the character? Is it stitched onto his face? Does he want to have this persona on? Because that could be part of your story too, right? Like you said, you've had to put on this facade, you've had to put on this mask. Is that something that you wanted to do, something you had to do, or you felt like you had to do? So there could be something in your story that may give a nice opportunity there, where like maybe you see this anonymous person, you don't really see their face, but you see face getting covered. Like you could open even something like that where their face is getting covered, then you cut to a side shot and you see that thing getting stitched on, right? It's like, it's almost like, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm under control because now I have this mask on and I can't control my body functions anymore. And then over time that loosens up, that releases, he becomes comfortable with the mask, and then, you know, everything's flowing after. So there even might be a language between the style of the external fabric element and the strings on the body. Like maybe it's very restrictive at first, maybe hard angles, and then at the end it becomes more flowy, a lot more waves. So again, more design elements. This is just food for thought. I'm not saying that any of these are correct. It's just more ways of looking at this thing if you haven't thought of those avenues yet. I got to commend you. Going into this, the idea is very clear. I like that you were able to explain your idea with one brief sentence at the head of this PDF, and then giving some reference and talking about the where it came from, the traditional Korean dance, and then getting into this. These are beautiful style frames. You did a really good job. The lighting is really nice. I love the color palettes. I could really see this moving. So you've done a good job so far. So I hope you enjoyed this episode where we reviewed Kiyoon's work. Hopefully you got a lot out of it and you understand the motion design process a little bit more. Stick around for the next couple of weeks as we review his process as he moves forward. Hopefully he takes my advice, or at least takes the good parts, and we'll see how it turns out maybe in a week or two. Catch you next time. Hey everyone, if you're liking this motion design series and you're interested in learning more about motion design, I'm actually teaching a course on the Futur Academy. And this is for people who want to learn how to make style frames. And in that course, I teach you how to tell a better story in your frames, how to compose those frames so they look nice and dynamic, how to find the best assets for your work, how to do the technical painting and put together your style frame, and then how to present your work and how to talk about that. So if you're interested in learning more, I'm going to add a link in the description below, as well as at the end of this video.